I really needed The Cleaner to be good, partly because I love Shelley Long, and also because I had to pay for the DVD and import it from the States because it's not available in the UK. So if you do want to watch this after I've discussed it, and I do recommend it, just bear in mind that if you're in the UK, it's not easy to get hold of. But I'd say it's worth it. But I also need to point out that I am potentially biased because I do love Shelley Long. This was released in 2021. It's written by Erin Elders and King Orba and directed by Erin Elders. And it stars King Orba as a cleaner called Buck. And he starts to clean this woman's house. And she's hired him not really because she wants him to clean her house, but because she wants him to find her estranged son. I think there does need to be an element of suspending disbelief there. But once you look past that fact, it's definitely a very interesting character-driven story. The narrative maybe isn't as intricate as it could be. I feel like it's very slow. They could have thrown in a few more things to make it a little bit more intense or a bit more mysterious. But what we get is pretty good because ultimately I was keen to find out whether he'd locate the son, and if so, where the son has gone. And obviously I'm not going to give away any of that information. While Buck is dealing with that, he's also dealing with his mother, played by Shelley Long, who is certainly a very interesting character. And I don't want to say too much about her role in this. It's not the most interesting character that she's ever played, but certainly I found her to be quite compelling in this role. In fact, all of the characters in this are very, very well written. They're very believable. They're very realistic. Their responses to every situation is completely believable. And that's something that I think can really make or break a film. So when you have a film like this, where there's an interesting narrative, but it's maybe not the most detailed narrative. I would have liked a little bit more from the story. But when you have really compelling characters, it helps to keep things moving along. And even when the narrative is a bit slow, it means we have something interesting to focus on. And that is, of course, with these characters. So while I don't tend to prefer character-driven films, I am more narrative-driven. I thought they were really interesting, very believable, and that part of it worked really well for me. And I will say, I'm not going to say what happens at the end, but while it is a very slow film, I'd say it's worth it, because the last kind of 20 minutes or so are brilliant. By that point, I was completely hooked, and I was just completely absorbed in those final maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'm not going to say why or what happens, but I found it to be not the direction I was expecting it to take, to be perfectly honest, and things were really fascinating. So I did enjoy it. It's not perfect. It is very slow, but the characters are amazing. So depending on what you're looking for, it might appeal to you. If you're a Shelley Long fan, absolutely watch it for Shelley Long. Her performance was very good, as was everybody's. And in particular, King Orba was fantastic as Buck. I felt Buck, out of all of them, was the most realistic character, but as I said, they're all very, very well written, great performances, definitely character driven, but the narrative is still interesting. There was still enough there to keep me engaged with the story, but it maybe wasn't as perfect as it could have been. Nevertheless, I'm glad to have seen it. I probably won't watch it a second time, which is a bit of a shame considering it cost me, it wasn't the most expensive. In fact, including postage, it was about £23, which for a film is not that extravagant, but for a film released in 2021 that's not very well known, maybe it is quite expensive. But nevertheless, if there's anything pulling you towards this film, then I'd say give it a go. I enjoyed it, the characters are brilliant, the narrative is okay, and I love Shelley Long. So all things considered, I'm pleased to have bought The Cleaner, I'm happy to have seen it, and I'm definitely happy to recommend it.